Hello and welcome to the Trinity Fit Over 40 podcast with me, Rob Burkhead. Today's podcast is an interview with Trinity member Jess, who's a busy senior NHS manager in her 50s. Before working with us, she'd spent the last few years unable to consistently lose weight, only able to lose a tiny bit and then regaining it again, despite doing more and more extreme diets and more extreme HIIT training. She was trying to eat less and less, but would then sabotage herself in the evenings, rewarding herself with wine after a tough day of work, and then starting to graze on snacks, and she just couldn't seem to break the cycle or lose weight anymore. She then heard about Trinity from a colleague and how she needed to work with her changing body and hormones around menopause, and over the last 14 months, Jess had lost over 3.5 stone to about 50 pounds, and has gone from a size 18 to a size 10. And those are UK dress sizes. She's now full of energy for life and doesn't feel the need to reward herself with food and drink, even after a hard day of back-to-back meetings. So in today's episode, Jess shares exactly how she did it, how she lost over 50 pounds in her 50s around menopause. So without further ado, let's get into today's podcast. Okay, so I'm here today with Trinity member Jess, who's lost more than 3.5 stone over the past 14 months. So Jess, I want to get into the context of who you are, first of all, so people can get a little bit of understanding before we then go into all the amazing things you've achieved and all the kind of the speed bumps along the way that everyone has. So I'll go with the blind date question. So if I was to say, who are you and where do you come from, what would you say?
Okay, so I am currently 53. So it feels like a really big achievement over the last 14 months to have got to where I am. I'm a senior manager in the NHS, so I have kind of quite a tough job. It's quite stressful at times. So it has been a really good journey with Trinity, kind of marrying those two things together. And it's been really positive that I've been able to sort of constantly engage with the program and use it as well during kind of my stressful life. That's sort of where I'm at, really. I have a grown-up son and a busy sort of family life as well as work life.
Okay, so you're juggling quite a lot of things. And before we get into your journey, like give us a little bit of context then. What does senior manager life look like? Is it like meetings all day? Are you in and out of offices? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I sort of have a hybrid working pattern.
Right.
Work partly from home, partly from the office. It's pretty much more than full-time hours, and it's pretty much back-to-back meetings, most of which these days are on Microsoft Teams. It's quite a challenge during the day to take a break and a challenge to sort of move. And that has been one of my biggest challenges, I think, getting enough steps in during the day. Sometimes I am glued to a screen for sort of 8 or 9 hours.
And despite that, I think the amazing thing is you've been able to see these huge changes in weight and all these other things as well that we'll get into. So it does show there's hope for people who are stuck in these jobs where you're kind of tied to your computer. So there's clearly a way around that, and we'll talk about how you did that. But I want to rewind first. So before you started with us, like, what was the situation that you were in, a year and a half ago before you started?
Okay, so I was doing 3 or 4 HIIT classes a week, and I'd been doing that for probably 2 or 3 years before I started with Trinity. I wasn't really losing any weight, or I'd lose half a stone and I'd put it back on again, lose it again, put it back on again. And I'd probably been doing that for probably 4 or 5 years. Previous to that, I had, in my 30s, I think, I had lost at times quite a lot of weight. I sort of tried Slimming World, I tried Rosemary Connolly, and I used to run a lot, and that certainly worked there. But when I kind of tried that again, sort of in my 40s and my late 40s, it absolutely didn't. It had no impact at all. I just couldn't lose weight, or I could lose a tiny bit of weight, and I certainly couldn't keep it off. And it got to a point just before I reached out to Trinity where I'd got to, I think I used to say I was a size 16, but the reality was I was probably an 18. And I just couldn't make anything work. I kept getting injured doing HIIT classes, and I had this niggling feeling that it wasn't quite right. It was all kind of get in there, do it all really quick. And I was thinking, I know my technique's not right, but you were just being pushed to move through kind of an exercise really quickly. So so a sort of a repeated pattern of getting injured as well during that time.
Got it. And you tried all these things. Were you skeptical? I don't know how you heard about us, but were you skeptical about it when you kind of heard about Trinity and what we were kind of promising?
Well, I saw somebody at work that I hadn't seen for quite a while who looked amazing, and asked her what her secret was. And she told me all about Trinity, and it just made sense. She started to explain about the negative impact sort of HIIT classes can have. And, I wasn't managing my stress at all well, my work stress at that point in time. And then the realization that I was actually kind of increasing my stress levels through exercise as well, it all started to click into place. So that's how I found out about Trinity. And I was really dubious whether I could, whether it would be okay for me. I didn't know whether I'd be able to exercise at home and whether I'd be able to have the motivation to sustain that. I didn't even know if I had the right space at home. I sort of had assumed you needed a great big space to exercise in. And actually I found it really reassuring that some of the kind of coaching exercise videos actually show the trainers doing it in a really small space. And actually that was really helpful. So I was thinking, I just need a small corner of the room and that's fine. So that was really helpful. But yeah, obviously sort of 14 months later, I'm still exercising 4 times a week at home, got the motivation to do it. And yeah, it's just a part of my life now.
And when you were doing all that HIIT training and you said your weight may have been going up and down slightly, but not really going anywhere, like how was that making you feel?
I was just really fed up with it because I was going to the classes, which are hard work, which I was sweating at, and coming out of them sort of feeling like I'd achieved something. But it was obviously only one piece of the jigsaw puzzle I needed. So I kind of knew, I was trying to cut down. I also tried some intermittent fasting around that time. And was trying to sort of increase the time I was fasting. But yeah, frustrating because nothing really felt like it was having an impact. And I didn't even, compared to how I feel now, I realised that I didn't even feel that well or that kind of positive mentally or, strong physically. I think for me, how I feel now, so I'm a size 10 now, it's not just about, it's great, the clothes I can wear and the difference that has, but I feel so strong and healthy in kind of my mind, my mindset, as well as my body.
So you were doing all these extreme things before, as we know now, well, as you know now, that are not necessarily helping on top of a very stressful job. So extreme types of exercise, fairly extreme dieting, like trying to, basically not eating for longer periods of time, and nothing was shifting. Was it a surprise to you when, you could get past, because you said before we started, like there was this half a stone, which you'd lose and then you'd regain it again. Like, was it a surprise to you that you continued going after that? Because I speak to a lot of people who think, now I've hit menopause or this age, I'm just not going to be able to do it anymore.
Yeah, so there was that in the back of my mind. It was a bit like, okay, I'll try this now, but that niggling thing. But I am, 52. I am, menopausal. Is it really going to work? But I'll give it a go. And also, the completely different style of exercising, because it wasn't the HIIT classes, because I wasn't sort of launching myself into that kind of high intensity thing. I was like, how is this going to impact? How is this going to work? But I saw the difference so quickly. So I think my weight loss has been, I haven't had any massive, great big jumps at any point. It has been steady throughout, and there have been blocks of time where I haven't lost any weight. So even perhaps 4 weeks at a time. But during that time, the difference in my fitness level, in my body shape, in my muscle definition has changed. And so that has, like, it's been so motivating. So it hasn't for me, just been about the weight loss. That's been sort of a real big part of it as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important to see, and we try and help everyone with this, and you've obviously embraced this, to see all the different ways you can have progress. It's not just the number on the scales, it's how you're feeling in your clothes, it's your measurements, which will also do, it's your energy levels, it's your confidence at work, it's everything. And maybe 1 month the weight doesn't change that much, as you said. Sometimes that happens for people for a variety of reasons, but over time it's trending in the right direction, and you've got to focus on all of those. So we talked before again about mindset. I think that's been a big part of your journey. So before you started and you were seeing these kind of ups and downs and doing these extreme approaches, like, how it sounds like your work's very stressful. Was that one of the challenges, you think, is like how you were dealing with the work stress? Did that have any impact on like your eating habits?
Definitely. So I used to, looking back, I can see that I used to manage that stress with often kind of treating myself with different foods that weren't often the best choice. And also alcohol was a big part of that. So I think, during my journey with Trinity, the exercise has been amazing. The nutrition support and balancing that has been fantastic. But using the mindset changes and using the thought transformers has really been pinnacle to everything I've done. I've used that to completely kind of reset my relationship with alcohol. So I certainly used to, have a really bad, stressful day and come home and think, oh, I've had a terrible day, have a glass of wine, have another glass of wine. And it's then what I used to eat after I'd had a glass of wine with no control over that was, having a really negative impact on my weight. So I know that. But equally, if I'd had a good day, I'd come home and say, I've had a really good day today, let's have a glass of wine to celebrate. And so using the thought transformers to change my relationship with alcohol has been huge. So I don't do that anymore. I don't need to do that anymore. I've used that process, and I continue to use that process also to manage stressful situations at work. So I use the thought transformers every morning, and I'll either think about something coming up that I know I'm going to find is difficult and use it as a way to manage that and reset how I think about that, or I'll reflect on something that I found difficult or found stressful that is niggling away and causing me like a sort of a niggling anxiety or a niggling stress. And so I'll use a thought transformer to sort of set my thoughts around that event.
Yeah, and that's the perfect way. There's two different ways to use it, like you said there. And ultimately, for anyone listening who's not sure what this is, it's a quick written exercise to kind of reframe your perspective on anything. So let's go through a specific example, maybe, because I think that'll be useful for people hearing. So around the alcohol one, you said you come home and you used to tell yourself. So we kind of start by identifying the story, right, or the thought that we would have had. So the first one for you would have been something like, I deserve a treat, or I deserve a glass of wine, or I need a glass of wine. Like, what was the story you originally?
Yeah, so it would be, so the kind of the event would be, I've had a really bad day, that was really stressful. Maybe around a specific actual incident
Right.
that happened, or issue that I couldn't resolve or try to resolve. So kind of my initial thought then was like, I need a glass of wine to wind down, and I deserve one. And that's going to make everything okay. So that's what I'd reach for, and I'd have a glass of wine or two. And the kind of the results of that then were that I would then probably open a packet of crisps. This is after tea. Then open a packet of crisps, munch my way through that. Maybe some nuts, because I think that might be healthier, but not so really work out how many I was eating or the sort of the impact on those, and just probably graze all evening and have another glass of wine. So I've sort of been able to kind of sort of change how I deal with that stress and that work stress, by sort of reflecting that I don't need that glass of wine to wind down and to feel better about the day. And actually, it ended up that it would have more of a negative impact, because the result of that would be that I would feel rubbish the next day. I was less likely to exercise. I would be putting on more weight. Whereas if I, have a bad day now or have a stressful day now, I sort of go through the fact that I don't need a glass of wine to make myself feel better, because I know in the long term, and I can evidence that out, and it really helps me to write it out as well, and sort of see it in front of me. So now I will come home and I might have a bath instead, or I might I think they're called Shakti mats. They're like acupressure mats that I lie on sort of to decompress. So I'll go and sort of spend 20 minutes doing that instead. And if I work that through, using the thought transformer, the results of that are that I am much calmer and much less stressed after that than I would have been if I'd had a glass of wine. And the results are, that I'm healthier and happier afterwards and feel better the next day.
And if you stack all of that, those better decisions up, that's one of the big reasons you've gone and lost 3.5 stone and gone from a 16/18 to a size 10. It's all those little better decisions ultimately that got that. So it's amazing to see it kind of play out. And I think that for some people listening, they might be still in that situation, and their one sort of joy in the day after tough days of work is like that glass of wine or the chocolate bar. Like, do you miss it now?
No, I don't. So I still have an occasional glass of wine, but it is an occasional one, and I probably enjoy it more because I'm not having it all the time. Chocolate has never really been a big thing for me. It's definitely more the kind of the crisps and the savoury snacks and the kind of cheese. But I absolutely don't miss it. I don't even think about it now really as such. Or if I do start thinking I'm going down that track again, then I will just refocus my thought transformers to that subject for a couple of days, and it sort of resets me again.
Amazing. And how then does all of this, I really want to see how this is like playing out in your day-to-day life. So you've lost 3 to 4 dress sizes, 3.5 stone. How is your life now different? Like, how are you going about it? Like on a day-to-day basis, like how is it different?
I have more energy. I have more energy for everything I do, sort of in my personal life, but also at work. It day to day, just I don't know, just even going up the stairs or painting your toenails is so much easier. And those sound like silly little things, but they're not. If the amount of times you do kind of run up and down the stairs a day, and I still kind of check myself sometimes about how different that feels and how much more positive that feels. So I have loads more energy. I'm less stressed at work as well, so it's really helped me kind of set that balance. So I do 5 to 10 minutes meditation every morning as well, Monday to Friday. I don't do it at the weekend, and that also has really, really helped me sort of get in the right mindset and not sort of internalize stress and sort of hold on to it, which has been kind of a really, really positive sort of addition to my day. I'm a morning person. I am pretty spent after work. I don't have sort of the energy or kind of the motivation in the evening to exercise or do anything there. So I know I have to do everything in the morning before work. So I get up and exercise in the morning before work. I'll do my thought transformers. I do everything first thing in the morning, which sets me up really well for the day then. And I know that I just wouldn't do it in the evening. So it's non-negotiable for me in the morning. That's my routine. That's what I do. That's what's going to make me feel better. That's what's keeping me fit and well and healthy.
And I guess the only thing that is throughout the day is going to be nutrition, right? So you got most of the prep out of the way, let's call it. So you set yourself up for success, which is so important. I think most people are dragging themselves through the day, tired, maybe groggy from the wine the night before, not done any exercise, wake up straight on the computer if you're working from home, and then kind of always on the back foot. But even if you have got ahead, then you've still got to eat well, right, for the day to get good results, especially around menopause. Like, you can't get away with just out exercising the wrong diet. So what have been kind of like the fundamental nutrition changes you've made throughout the day?
I'm more prepared. So I know the night before what I'm going to have for breakfast and what I'm going to have for lunch. We plan our meals roughly at the weekend for the week coming. So I know really what I'm going to eat and what my evening meal is going to be, which allows me then to kind of think about what macros I need at lunchtime or breakfast, and sort of make sure my kind of getting the right amount of protein. So I do plan those things, but they're not all written down. So I know what I'm going to have, and I know, I'm sort of confident with what the day looks like for my nutrition. But I don't meal prep beforehand, or I haven't found it necessary for me to do that much preparation beforehand.
So you're still doing it on the fly, which is good. So you're not having to, it's actually not that big a change. You're just making different choices. Is that right?
Yeah. Absolutely. So there is always a selection of things in the fridge. So I do prep that beforehand, that I know that I can grab for lunch, because, even though I'm working from home 3 days a week, sometimes I will only have 5 minutes between meetings to grab something to eat. So I am prepared to that extent, so that I'm not, I'm not opening the cupboard and taking out, a couple of slices of bread and making some toast. I am sort of prepared enough, but it is, it's making sure that there is something there to help you make the right decisions. You need that behind you.
And I guess you also know maybe you did know before, I don't know, what the right decision is. I think a lot of people, you mentioned protein, a lot of people don't even realize they need high protein, especially, they think, oh, that's maybe for men or for bodybuilders. Like, what do you like? Let's go do your lunch, for an example. And this isn't me testing you. You don't need to have a perfect lunch, but what are you having now versus what were you having, when you were struggling to lose the weight?
So beforehand, I wasn't very prepared. So often I would go to work with no lunch, and then would, grab a sandwich or something from the shop. And it's pretty hard. It's not impossible to make a good decision there, but I didn't make those good decisions there. It was, bread is, I absolutely love bread. So it would be the first thing that I went to, big sort of crusty roll with loads of cheese and sort of salad in there. Now I have, it very much changes winter and summer. So in the winter, I'm likely to have kind of soups and things ready to go. But I will have a selection of salads in the fridge that are all homemade that I can just grab, and I will grab that with maybe open a tin of tuna. That's really quick and easy. Or maybe some sardines, or I will cook some tofu and have that in the fridge, so I can quickly add that into a salad to make sure I've got that protein and that it's prominent in my meal. I think I was aware before I started Trinity that I should be increasing my protein or having enough protein, but I never had the support that I have now with Trinity as to how much protein and how to incorporate that into your meals, into your day.
And there's quite a lot of misinformation out there, I think, about protein as well. So there's a lot of packaged foods that will say like high protein. I don't know if you've seen this, like packet of nuts or something, which actually is not that, it's not awful, but it's not that high. But if you just go by what the packaging is saying, you think, oh, I'm getting loads of protein. So I've had that like high protein nut mix or from Graze or whatever. So have there been any like shock revelations in terms of food choices going, that thing I thought was healthy that's not?
I suppose dairy for me has been a big thing. So I used to rely on cheese an awful lot in my sort of meals and in my week, and I would have it as a major part of a lot of meals. And also, then it's in the fridge, easy to snack on as well.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, starting Trinity with sort of that initial removing dairy altogether, I was kind of quite anxious about that. But I was completely fascinated at how I didn't miss it after 2 weeks at all. I have soya milk now, don't even think about dairy milk. Actually, it makes me feel slightly queasy if I think about that now.
Yeah, so.
And occasionally I do eat cheese, very occasionally. I might have a bit of feta on a salad. But actually, I just don't ever think about it or contemplate it as part of my kind of go-to at all, or part of my meal. And I just don't miss it at all. And I feel so much better not eating it as well. A few times where it has been slightly out of my control and I have maybe gone to friends for a meal and it's been sort of more in the meal that I would have chosen to put, I really think I've felt quite grotty afterwards the next day. So that's been kind of quite a revelation.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of food choices people are making that they don't realise is making them feel worse, and they might put it down to that must be the menopause, or this is just how I feel. I'm maybe getting older, but actually, wheat and dairy, which are two of the four things that we cut out in the diet makeover, a big part of that is for people to go to either of these made me feel bad, because a lot of people have intolerances to them to some degree, and like you said, I used to have cheese as just a staple snack. I used to drink milk and not realize it was causing me issues. Like, until you cut it out for a bit, you don't know. So it's a really good test. And on your journey, then, if we call it that, like, have there been any? I'm guessing it's not just been plain sailing. Have there been any like months where things have happened that, like, you've had roadblocks, whatever they might be? Have there been anything like that for you, or has it just been like smooth, easy going?
Yeah, it's not plain sailing at all. There's been a few things that have happened. So I think probably the first time where I didn't see my weight change very much over a few weeks. I think I probably started to feel quite negative about that. But my coach, Laura, was just really amazing, really supportive. And I think she said one simple sentence, which was something about be patient, it will happen. And within sort of the next 2 weeks, I saw this sort of really big change again. And she was just really reassuring about it, that I was on the right track and that was okay. I had an injury. I did have a shoulder injury. And I was really sort of worried about that. I wasn't going to be able to exercise as much as I was. I wasn't going to sort of see the results because of that. But I had lots of support from Laura, I think yourself, Rob, about how to kind of adjust the sessions and how to kind of manage around my shoulder. And then did lots of kind of mobilization exercises and rotator cuff strengthening exercises, which really quickly sort of allowed me to get back on track. But it didn't stop me at any point from doing my 4 sessions a week. It still was absolutely able to kind of nail all of them, and it didn't have any impact at all. So I had loads of support through that time. And then just kind of the usual challenges, I suppose, the kind of Christmas or birthdays or holidays, sort of coming up to those events. I've sort of thought, how am I going to deal with it? But I was able again to use the thought transformers around managing kind of my thoughts around that and sort of reframing them into kind of positive way of dealing with things. And just keeping them balanced. So yeah, I have been on holiday and I, didn't do my 4 workouts a week, but my step count increased, massively over that period of time, which was a really good balance. Yes, we had lots of meals out. I made and was aware of what choices to make, so I was able to have really lovely food, but know kind of how to keep that balanced. And so, and I think Laura has always kind of been, she just has the right advice at the right time. So any sort of queries, any wobbles I've had, she's been, she's just like a brilliant coach. She's been so supportive. So she just kind of completely gets me, and sort of really, she's just been great, and has been that kind of constant throughout, which and also she knows. I think she's really understood how much, how do I say that? How much to, not to push me, but she just balanced it exactly right. The amount of advice she gives and how to pitch it.
And that's, I think, a really important thing. I wanted to come on to kind of that coaching relationship, which underpins everything we do, because I think it is, maybe pushes the wrong word, like you said, but like you do sometimes need, in my experience, people need a nudge sometimes to go, either you're doing really well and you just need to keep pushing now, not let off the gas. But other times go, it's okay, you don't need to be hard on yourself. Like this, it's been 2 weeks without seeing your weight change. And otherwise, that voice in your head, I think, can very quickly psych yourself out. Be like, it's all gone wrong. It's a disaster. What's the point? And then maybe that was also a fundamental thing before, on top of all the other things you talked about, that meant you'd lose half a stone and then regain it and lose it. Because do you think you were talking yourself out of it and didn't have the tools to deal with it at that point?
Absolutely. It would get to, I've lost half a stone. Oh, now I've put back on 3 pounds, but I've been trying, but I've been doing my HIIT classes. What is the point? There is no point. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really tough place to come out of. So Jess, let's just summarize the results and then I've got one more question. So if you could go like top 3 physical results, is it like, let's do weight, dress size, and anything else you've noticed? What would you say those would be?
Strength, mobility, and dress size and sort of being able to wear what I want now.
And did you have those size 10 clothes that you wanted to get back into, or have you had to buy a whole new wardrobe?
No, I've had to buy a whole new wardrobe. So I have bought. So I've really good tip actually is to use Vinted, because I've had a constant wardrobe that fits me sort of throughout the 40 months, because I've just kind of used it to buy the next size down clothes. I think I've completely confused its algorithm actually for how it advises, it sort of suggests what I might be interested in, because that's changed so frequently throughout.
And have you noticed you're wearing different things as well, like more colourful things or different styles since you've seen this big change?
Absolutely. Yeah, just it's been great just being able to kind of wear whatever I want.
Amazing. So last question I've got for you then, like if you rewind to you 14 months ago on the fence, so going, there's this thing I've heard about, maybe it helped because you heard about it through work, but you still must have had some skepticism. Like, what would you say to, because there must be people in that situation who are listening going, I'm kind of stuck, like you were in a bit of a rut, or things are going in the wrong direction, I'm not feeling good. What would you say to that person in that situation who's thinking about taking the plunge and joining Trinity or doing this program?
That it is absolutely worth it, and it is so much more than a diet program or a weight loss program. It will change your life. It's changed my life, and it's about sort of embracing all 3 elements to it: the nutrition, the exercise and the kind of resetting, the mindset side of it, and reframing how you think, managing your stress. It is so much more than a diet program. And actually, for me, it's the other side of it. It is that mindset that has meant that I've achieved what I've achieved.
Amazing. So Jess, thank you so much for joining me today and taking time out to share your story. It's really, really interesting to hear, and really heartwarming for me to hear as well how much it's changed things, not just physically, but all the other things as well. So I just want to say thank you, first of all, and keep up the brilliant work. You're doing so well. And if there's anything else you want to share, we can always come back to it and do another catch up when you've kind of maintained everything. I always think it's very interesting to share that story too, but I want to say thanks.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks. Good to speak to you.